All right, this is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI Implementation Group. Today is Monday, October 22, 2018. So we've got a number of things to discuss today. Let's get started by going over the previous release, 1.12 release tasks that were outstanding. It looks like all the 0.41 containers have been, sidecar containers have been cut. Is that true, Luis?
Yes, and one of the things that Jan, I think he's on, yeah, Jan just asked me is to make one for liveness probe. So
Okay.
I'll do that today.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So we'll leave that one outstanding, and looks like the rest of them are done. Next steps are to update the end-to-end tests to point to the 0.4x release, the sidecar containers. Two parts of this. One is updating the host path drivers, which currently dynamically set the sidecar container version inside the end-to-end test. And then updating the GCPD sidecar containers to update to point to update their manifest files, basically. And I think Patrick sent out, okay, no, I don't think he has flaky host path CSI end-to-end test. I think he's looking into the current flakiness of the end-to-end test. So this is outstanding work we need to get on. Once the end-to-end tests have been updated, we'll need to cherry pick them back to 112. And then the other outstanding work is snapshot end-to-end tests. Xing, looks like there's a PR already here.
Yeah, and Jean reviewed it and looks good to her. But do we also need to update the image to use 0.4.1? I think so, right? So that is not updated yet, that part.
Okay.
But
does that mean
the code
it depends on this task?
In the snapshot test itself, maybe those are actually the same. Maybe there's some overlapping between the two because it's also, this is about the host path, right? So it will also use the image for the other sidecars in addition to snapshots. So
Okay.
maybe there's some overlapping between the two tasks, I think.
Okay. But the tests themselves look ready to go?
Yeah, Jean has reviewed it. Yeah, I also look at it. So the test itself looks good. So I don't know, do we want to update it first before the merging, or do we want to merge it first and update? What's best?
If we, let's not wait, let's get it merged and then update if because I don't know how long this is going to take, so
okay.
This is ready to go. I'd rather not block on it.
Okay, so...
well, does it mean that the test will start failing until we update the images?
Should not fail, right? It's still using the 0.4.0, that tag. So it should not be failing. That's the tag we did early on. So it actually passed if you look at it, actually passed CI. So it will not fail.
Did we verify that the poll job is actually running the E2E test? Because sometimes if there's like some serial or slow label on it, it won't run in the poll job.
That I do not know. I'm not sure how to verify that. I thought every time you run it, it will pull the new code, no?
You can look at the list of tests that were run in every job, so you can see if it ran the test case.
Okay.
Yeah, so not all tests are run on every single PR. There's a subset of tests which are marked as like critical and they're run on every single PR.
Okay.
And so if you introduce a new test, it's not necessarily true that it's going to get run as part of that PR's CI. So you'll have to manually run it to make sure that it actually passes.
Okay. Okay, so
so I guess next steps are let's verify that the test is working, passing, and it's not failing. And if that's the case, we can merge it. If not, we'll have to wait for this.
Okay.
Cool. Next up is topology end-to-end tests. Cheng, any updates on that?
Still a work in progress. I'm going to prioritize this.
Okay. And then CSI pod workload end-to-end tests. Jan, any updates on this?
No, sorry.
Okay, no worries. All right, so that's the 112 release plan. So next up are the current items for this quarter. The tasks that we consider blockers for CSI GA. P0 is moving CSI persistent volume source and volume attachment API objects. Last we left off, Jordan didn't like the inline volume source placeholder that was there. Any other concerns or issues, Jan?
He still doesn't like it. I need to talk to him tomorrow, probably, or maybe today.
But that volume source placeholder is just in a comment, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So I think your next question is probably, is it sufficient to just remove it?
Yeah, that's what I was getting.
That's what I offered, and he wants to have some forward compatible mechanism when we add inline volume and do some validation around that. Well, the inline volume will be behind alpha feature gate.
Yes.
And then when we disable the alpha feature, then the attachment, the volume source will be empty. And then that volume source won't pass validation. But that was the case when we introduced CSI volume source in persistent volume. This is the same case.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody complained at that time. And now Jordan is complaining. So I don't know.
Okay,
let me know stuff since P1.
If you want to include me and Vlad on the meeting, let me know. Otherwise, feel free to talk to him yourself. It sounds like you have a decent argument, at least with the fact that we already did this in the past. Okay, thank you for the update. Next up is kubelet device registration mechanism to GA. Two parts to this. One is making sure that the core mechanism is updated and moved to GA for this quarter to unblock CSI. Updates on that, Vlad?
The core mechanism. So as we spoke, I think Friday at Ping Me, I'm looking at there's a I'm sorry, the core portion of it. The last time I spoke to Renault, we're looking okay. He, like I said, his concern was more on whether or not we're doing E2E, and I think he was going to talk to the node folks to make sure that we can move forward. But he seems to think that we'll be able to. But I know he was traveling, so I'm going to go ahead and try to ping him today again to see where we are. And then the second portion is what's inside CSI. There is that method, that the deregister or unregister method that we need to implement. I haven't given it much thought how we're going to do it, but that's one of the things that I'll be doing.
Okay. And I think it will be important to figure out if this is a blocker for 1.0 or not. We don't have it right now and seem to be functioning okay. So maybe let's figure that out and then go from there.
Oh, you talking about the callback to unregister?
Registration callback, yeah.
Yeah, it is something that we should think about whether or not it's a blocker. because so what I'll do is kind of do some thought work to see what happens when we want something to be deregistered and what should happen, how it should work, et cetera. Because I don't think we've done that exercise yet.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. CRD installation mechanism. This is just blocked on me. I'm sorry. I need to get on creating a PR for the add-on manager. I'm going to try to do that before Wednesday. Next up is the Csi External Provisioner. There was a PR out here for stateful set spreading work. What's the status of that, Deep?
Yeah, so it's under review. So Michelle and Cheng, they provided some really great feedback. So I've addressed all of that. So that's all addressed. So waiting for a second review basically on the PR.
Awesome.
And
so it looks like
yeah, and for the next item, the admission webhook, that's still in progress. I'm just trying to figure out some of the mechanics around it. So maybe we'll ask for some help. And it also, I saw a note saying that the installation of this webhook will depend on the CRD installation from above. So the final integration will need to be coordinated.
Okay, so we need to unblock that quickly. All right, thanks, Deep.
Sure.
Next up is moving the CSI driver and CSI node info objects to beta. This is also blocked on the CRD installation, so I will get on that. Moving CSI to 1.0, no updates here. Everything seems to be on track. Cheng has an item that he wanted to add for the CSI topology work around self-labeling. And we'll make sure to get that in hopefully this week, Cheng?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cool. Next up is moving CSI RBAC role definitions from Kubernetes to external repo. Patrick's doing an extensive amount of work here. Currently, he's focused on making a PR that will allow end-to-end tests to dynamically create a different set of role bindings from a manifest file based on the test that is being run. And this will allow multiple tests to be run in parallel, multiple CSI tests, because they'll all deploy a different version of the host path container as well as a different set of role bindings. I was talking to Michelle about this last week, and I'm not sure how important this is in terms of unblocking us moving forward. We could just run these tests in serial if we wanted to. But either way, that's okay, and it looks like there's progress there. Patrick's not on the line, but we'll get an update from him when he is. He's also working on deflaking the end-to-end test for host path. The end-to-end test would fail sometimes, and he wanted to get in some additional logging, for which he added a mechanism that would dump the logs from the sidecar containers, and that PR is currently pending as well. Next up is splitting the driver registrar into separate repos, a cluster and a node repo. Luis, are you going to work on this week?
Let me talk first about the stuff I've been working on over the weekend, because this work right here is quite simple, and I want to see if we can fix the storage stuff, the block stuff before, because the spec is coming out soon.
And you added that up here. Okay, yeah, feel free.
You want to talk about it now? I can wait till the end.
We can talk about it now.
Okay, so it's quite simple. What happens is that when there is when you create a volume for block, and then you do a node publish, you provide a target path. The problem is that a block, you don't mount it in a different path. It's just in the attach, right? But the attach request right now, controller publish volume, doesn't give back like the location. So the caller doesn't know exactly where the location of this block device is. So we could, in CSI, have no publish volume response provide back the target and saying the location is here. or do we do a bind mount, which is kind of weird, for a CSI location from /dev to the target location? You see what I mean?
So my understanding was, sorry, go ahead, Vlad.
No, I was going to confirm the second one is actually, believe that's what we're doing.
But doesn't that force
which is
drivers to bind mount? That seems painful.
It's not a bind mount, it's a symlink.
It's a symlink. I'm sorry. Yes, it's a symlink.
So yeah, go ahead.
You get a basically you get a file on that call, and with that file you symlink it. So the CO basically is expected that at the end that there'll be something that symbolically linked to that location. So that's how it works right now. But I do agree that block is not well defined and probably could be polished a little bit, because I've been having conversation with somebody else over a PR via, I think it's for RDB. And those are the same question and same issues that keep coming up. And because I think there was a conversation on the CSI spec over an issue that went back and forth where you should do bind mount or the link, symbolic link, and it never got cleared which direction we should go. So I think by default right now we're doing symlinks.
Well, does bind mount even work for a block device? Is there any assumption of a file system?
Well, the device is not mounted yet, so that's the problem. It's just a raw device, so the symlink is the only way.
Yeah, that's what I would understand. That's my understanding.
So I just want to make sure that's correct. So that means that the driver is responsibility to create a symlink to the target location.
Correct. So basically the idea at a very high level is all the CO cares about is that I want a volume to be available at a particular path, and it specifies whether that volume is file or block. If it's block, it just says this is the path that I expect the block device to be available at, and here is the identifier that I use to identify that volume, and then potentially the same volume attributes, which could contain the actual device path if you wanted it to or not, but that's orthogonal. So once the request comes to the plugin has to say, okay, somehow, some way, I need to take this volume and make it available at this path as a block device. And so the natural way to do that is just create a symlink from the /dev disk to the actual path that we provided as the target path. Once it's available at that path, the CO can then take it and make it available inside the container, also as a symlink.
Okay.
Hey, Louis, quick question. So I'm guessing you're implementing block right now. Are you running into issues, or this was just not clear? I'm just curious.
I am the bullet right before this one is the one I want to talk about next, which is so yes, the answer is yes, and it's based on the open source control plane of Portworx, which is we call open storage, and it's a really simple thing. It uses NFS for as a location, and an NFS directory as a NFS share, or a file on that NFS volume, and then we mount it using loop device, LO setup, and it's available as block. So when I was doing that one, that's when I found this. So two things. One is I found this issue, and I think is there a CSI link to an issue with already trying to fix this value? If not, I can start one. Because I think this is necessary.
No, I'm still. You said it was the second bullet point that you're having. So I'm guessing it's toward the bottom there. Plugin must take block device and which issue you were pointing
Yeah,
to?
exactly right. Is there an issue in the CSI spec that adds this comment to the spec?
Oh no, there is not. There is no PR that I know that specifically states this.
Okay, so I'm going to add one, and I'll add the link here because I want that. I would like that to be in there before 1.0 is released.
Okay. And I'll post an ongoing discussion regarding this issue in a document as well. That kind of discusses it. So maybe that will be a continuation of that.
Perfect. The second thing is that what I'm talking about, that bullet, is that I understand that we're still using host path, and there's a lot of people asking for a better sample driver and things like that. So what I'm trying to do here is, I have it almost done, is a sample CSI driver, but it is cluster capable, so it can do multiple nodes, reattach and attach to multiple nodes and things like that. Super simple thing. It just needs an NFS backstore, and it supports the entire CSI spec, snapshots, and everything. So,
what's
so
the
is
back
it like an enhanced NFS? I'm sorry.
Sorry, two things at the same time. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Vlad.
Is it an enhanced NFS driver? Is that what it is?
Think about it this way: it's like it's either a directory on an NFS share or a file on an NFS share, which is then LO set up as a block device. And when you do that, then it's available as raw block. So it does both. And then to do snapshots, it just copies over the directory or the file. So it's really simple, but it's very powerful because it will support the entire cluster. You can go from any node to any node, move the pods around and everything. I mean, somebody could use it for a real thing, but I don't know if I suggest it.
So basically what it does is deploy an NFS server and then the CSI driver that can do file against that NFS, and then it can do block by having a file on that NFS server that gets mounted as a block device?
It would actually be that the NFS server gets mounted on every node.
Okay.
And then when you want your pod to talk to a block device, then the CSI driver, what it does is it takes a file from the NFS server, and on that node does an LO setup, right? So that it's available then on the host of that node where the pod is.
So the assumption is, in order for block to work in this case, the NFS share must be mounted on the host machine?
The CSI driver takes care of that. You just need to point it to an NFS share somewhere. And I also have an NFS Ganesha container that it just looks at like somewhere in the host and creates a share. So the whole thing will be able to be deployed very easily.
Okay.
So I would suggest we still keep the host path because people are already familiar with that. And I mean, this sounds great. You can do a cluster, right? Host path you cannot do cluster, but at least right now use that one.
Yeah, I'm not trying to kill host path.
I'm just saying that that's a super simple one people can start with.
Yes.
And but adding this seems to be more powerful.
Yes, exactly right. And this one can be deployed. You can test with it. You can move a pod around. The CSI should detach and attach on the other side and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. If you want to send out a PR for that for an end-to-end test, feel free. I think it would be useful. I think the end-to-end tests for block have been missing for a while, so this would be great. Any other concerns about block and CSI?
I have not. Once I pass this point with the symlink, then I'll find to see if there's any others.
Okay.
But I will probably ping Vlad or look at the documentation and make sure I can do network block stuff on Kubernetes.
So feel free to fix the documentation as you go, and ideally I'd love to get your thoughts on if there's any blocking issues, because before we go to 1.0, if we discover that block is not workable, that's something we should know as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my real goal for this week. It should be, I'm almost done with this program, so it should be done very soon.
Perfect. All right, so we'll keep an eye out for that.
I was just going to add there. So there's a PR of a person working on a BRD block, and we've been going back and forth. That's also another angle to discover anything that may be that we may need to adjust with block for CSI.
Have there been any blocking issues on that side so far?
No, so there is no issue. So the same type of comments and questions have came up, but the gentleman or young lady who's doing the PR has done a great job at
Awesome.
There was one bug, but it wasn't in CSI itself.
Okay.
It was inside. I think it was inside the generated function. So a PR was created and got merged earlier based on that person's work, and so we've been going back and forth. And the last point that we addressed was exactly whether or not we should keep doing symlink or do mount or do both. So I kind of steered him toward just keep doing symlink.
Yep.
Because that's what existing drivers have been doing.
Yep.
So I haven't checked. I think that Thursday or Friday was the last time we communicated over that PR. So today when I check, I'll see where they are, because I would really like to see that PR go in, because I think it'll put us in a good position for
validating that code path
for CSI beta.
Yep.
Okay. Vlad, when you say PR, what is that for? The PR for repo?
It's a BRD PR. It's a PR for. So the person is implementing block for. I think it's either Ceph or something like. I don't remember exactly, but it's yeah. But they're implementing block, so they kind of went the same route you've gone to and discovered certain things. And part of what came out of that is rework of some of the code. And like I said, there was a bug in the order in which the generated function for that controller was releasing symlinks. So, but that other PR actually got merged based on their work, but there's still some other stuff that the person wanted to adjust and change in the CSI code. So that's what I'm working with them. And like I said, I'd like to see that go in. So what I'll do, I'll post that in here so we can kind of track it as well.
Yeah, I'm just confused because you say I hope that goes in, but you're talking about not a repo that we know about. Maybe a repo like Ceph or something.
No, it's part of the Kubernetes.
Oh, it's part of Kubernetes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The Kubernetes internal code for CSI.
Got it.
Yes. Sorry if I wasn't clear. Yes, that's what it is.
Okay, cool. So I'll get that link in there, and then we'll track that as well as we go along.
Yep.
Next up, where were we? So Louis,
everyone.
I guess we can start on the driver registration split up next week. I do think this is important, and we should do it before we go to CSI 1.0, because it'll set the right precedence for people who are writing a 1.0 driver. Like, hey, there are two separate things that you need to keep track of, and they're different. Here's how they're different. Here's how you deploy them, that kind of thing. So sounds like we can hopefully get that started next week. Next item is improving documentation. So I think this discussion on block was important. There are outstanding questions like this. Please submit small PRs to the Kubernetes-CSI documentation to improve it. Going from 1.11 to 1.12, we had a lot of questions from people who had existing drivers that broke about what do I do to fix it. Things like that should be captured in the documentation, especially as we go to 1.0. So please submit small PRs. Luis has volunteered to help kind of clean that up. And if you just send out PRs, that'll be great.
Yeah, you just send the PR. I'll generate them. Don't worry about that if it's difficult for you.
Yeah, thank you. Next up are tasks that are not blockers for CSI, snapshots in particular. There's a productive meeting this morning Xing, do you want to talk about any of that?
Yeah, so all of these are work in progress, and in a lot of those we already have PRs for it. And then we just had a good meeting on the design of a group snapshot. So just got some feedback. We will discuss more about that in our next meeting.
Cool. Yeah, it was a very productive meeting, and hopefully that design flushes out. Next up is implementing CSI pod inline volume support. So there was a question about whether this might need to be prioritized higher. Did that get resolved?
That was based on the comment. So I put that in there based on the comment, the placeholder issue we were just discussing earlier.
Got it.
So it sounds like that's not related, whether we have a placeholder or not. So I had put this in there whether or not we need to move it to priority, so it'll be there with this release, but it didn't sound like that's what the issue was. The issue is just a comment whether or not it'll be acceptable.
Okay.
So yeah, this has continued to work. I'm running into unforeseen volume workflow API tweaks that I need to do to make this unforeseen, not enforcing.
Oops.
Sorry. But basically, I'm at the point where I can drop an inline volume inside a pod. It'll get detected. It'll go through the motion of trying to do what needs to be done during the setup at portion of the volume plugin workflow. So I'm that far, but like I said, there are points of tweaking to get things to go all the way through because of the way the volume API works, and what we're trying to do with the CSI inline doesn't, no pun intended, line up. So that's where I'm at. So once I get these tweaked, I should be able to drop an inline volume inside a pod, and it'll go through the whole thing, and then we could go through another round of design and comment to make sure that that's what we want to do.
Cool. That sounds good. And again, just I know there's a lot on your plate, so feel free to prioritize this lower than everything else. Let's focus on things, CSI blockers first, and then we can get to this. Next up is the CSI migration work. Any updates on this, Deep?
No major updates since Friday. Basically, I'm still looking at the external provisioner and seeing how it can be hooked up. Yeah, so no major updates.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And then finally, there's an item here from Jan, detach from deleted nodes. External attacher can't read node ID from node API object because the node has been deleted. How do we handle that? Some options. One, pass the special node ID to CSI driver, an empty string or node name. Option 2, add finalizer on the node object. Option 3, save node ID to volume attachment. Jan, do you want to discuss this some more? Looks like he might have dropped off. Jan, are you there? Okay, well, I think the problem is fairly clearly stated here. If the node object disappears, how should we handle it? Adding a finalizer on it seems like it would be the most robust solution, but my guess is that that might meet with some resistance. We can try asking SIG node if they're open to that. Otherwise, passing a special node ID to CSI driver I'm not sure how that would work. And save node ID to volume attachment. That also seems like a reasonable fallback. I think I would prefer number 2.
Well, detach operations generally don't require node ID, right?
Detach. That's true. But I think the problem is the CSI, I think, actually, do we expect it on the CSI spec for?
Yeah, but the detach, it depends on, I think it depends on the storage platform.
Yeah, and I forget on the CSI spec, do we specify the node ID on a controller node unpublish? Or sorry, controller unpublish volume.
Oh, we do actually. Just checked in the request. There's volume ID, node ID, and controller.
Okay, so what that means is that we need to make sure that we have some way to specify that, even if the underlying volume might not require it, since the spec requires it, the sidecar container has to have a good way to deliver it. So I prefer the add finalizer. I don't understand the first solution, and the third would be a good fallback as far as I'm concerned. Any thoughts on that?
Me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I got issues with my microphone. I'm not sure that adding finalizer on node will pass through SIG node because it's pretty heavy. But that would be the perfect solution because the node ID in volume attachment, it's double-edged sword because it doesn't get updated when you update the driver and it changes its node ID. So we may use the old node ID, which could be fine for CSI drivers. And this is the easiest to implement, like just a notation.
Yeah. I say sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
I think putting the finalizer on node ID might introduce some funny dependencies with node controller or node cloud controller or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you put the finalizer on the CSI node info object?
I could. Yeah, but then I need to remove the finalizer, and if I uninstall the driver, nobody removes the finalizer.
So I guess what we need is some central way to be able to handle the finalizer instead of letting the drivers do it.
That's too complicated.
Yeah.
I would go with the annotation until somebody complains.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay.
Doesn't the volume attachment object already have a node name in it?
It has no name, no ID.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. I think the annotation is fine for now then.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to discuss?
Yeah, I will probably schedule a meeting for CSI driver update. Do you have time on Wednesday before the CSI meeting?
CSI driver update. Yes. Wednesday before this meeting?
Yeah.
Let me check my calendar real quick.
That's
Yeah, I think that should be fine. Works for me.
yeah. That's normally the time for the CSI meeting anyway.
Okay, I will send an invitation tomorrow.
Cool. Last item, Michelle has graciously offered to help with moving CSI to GA. This is a very important project for us, and I'm a little bit stretched thin, and so she's going to come in and help us out. Starting Wednesday, she's going to start running this meeting. I'm still going to be called in and paying attention and answering questions, but I'm going to let her start driving the meetings more and more. And then if she gets overwhelmed with too much work, I'm going to, she can lean back on me and vice versa. So if you see more of Michelle, that's what's going on. We're just trying to get this over the line in this quarter. And that's all I have for today. Next meeting is Wednesday. See you then.
All right, take care.
All right,
Bye.
take care.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.